What is up,
What's up, fam?
world? People, everybody. My name is George. This is Kadri.
I'm Kadri.
We are so excited. We have been planning this for one of the first idea of this came up was sometime at the end of last year.
Yeah.
I remember we were talking about it. It was a joke, like all good things. I think all the great things in the world. It started off like a joke. We were joking about doing a podcast, and then we were like, "Yo, what if we called it Black on Black?"
And then it got real. I love how that's when it got real.
Yeah, it totally.
If that was the stupidest thing we could have said, and it got real.
And then every other week after I saw you, I was like, "Dude, I kind of like Black on Black. I kind of like the idea of that." And then I started my YouTube a few weeks back. Thank you for all you guys who are following along. And I was like, I would love for this to be a video podcast one of the weeks. And Kadri so graciously accepted. So we're gonna do these once a month, at least for the start. Maybe if it gets bigger, we'll do more. But just for the first season, we'll do one a month. And so for those of you guys who don't know who I am, my name is George Coltrane. I live in the San Diego area. I have a long story. I won't tell it all, but military kid moved around a lot, but I've been here in SoCal for a minute. My first love has always been music, but God did not bless me with the voice. So I do the next best thing, which is film, which I also love doing. I love doing film work. So I do a lot of film work here. I do film work for my church, for my own self, for a couple of businesses that I run, my YouTube, obviously, and I pretend to do music, but mostly I support my friends who make music because all my friends make really dope music, and I listen to a lot of Spotify. But that's me in a nutshell. I'm married, been going on marriage for over 2.5 years, which is hella dope. My wife is amazing. She's letting us film this in the bottom of our house in this basement, which is kind of creepy, but also kind of looks fire. I just love art. I love sports. Go Lakers all day. Clippers are the worst franchise of all time.
Nice.
And I'm black.
All right, my name's Kadri Williams. I am a musical artist.
Genius.
Whatever, dude. And I'm also a visual artist and graphic designer. I write music, play music, live, breathe, eat, sleep,
Facts,
fart music. And currently just working on a ton of personal projects and stuff like that. And I'm also black.
Hence the name Black on Black. Yeah, it's funny the name Black on Black, obviously for those of you guys who are aware, it's not usually a positive term.
Very negative.
Usually we're in reference to black on black crime and kind of that. So we thought, let's take something that's negative, turn it into positive. And that's kind of the premise of this podcast is issues and stuff that are not talked about or are talked about very negatively. We wanted to start healthy conversations about them. Living in SoCal, there's a lot of white people who have black friends, but not a lot of them. And so there's just issues that just don't really get addressed. And so, I don't know. We talk about them all the time. So we're like, we talking about them in secret. Let's talk about them on camera and let you guys peer in. And,
we want to make this a healthy environment to discuss these topics and
also fun.
Very fun. We want to, some of the subject matter I imagine we're going to talk about won't be happy-go-lucky laugh track kind of content. But
true.
I think we want to try to have a place where this is like a safe area to discuss some really hard and pressing topics and also some more possibly lighthearted things or perspective.
For sure.
Just things for more broad perspective or maybe a glimpse into maybe a world that some of the people watching are not familiar with and maybe others are, and that's something healthy to be able to have somebody talk about those things and what's the right word for it,
just inspire good conversation.
Totally, 100%.
Hopefully you guys look at this and go, man, these are conversations I either need to have with my black friends or my black family, or just even when you're white communities. If you're white, then have them in a healthy way that is constructive and not destructive, because so much of these conversations right now are destructive, and that's sad. So but also we are going to have a lighthearted attitude about some stuff, because they are serious. We don't want it to be all gloom and doom. We're pretty goof off kind of guys. We've been friends for a long time, so we're just gonna have inside jokes, and you guys kind of get to watch. And
it's gonna be a fun time
and wonder what we're talking about. But yeah, so we thought we'd kick this whole thing off with a kind of lighthearted one. Why don't you tell the people what we decided in this? Because this is Kadri's idea to call this.
So we were listening to a beautiful song by Miss Solange Knowles.
Solange Knowles,
and the song is
also
called,
featuring my favorite artist, Sampha.
Yes, Sampha is on that track.
Sampha, if you ever watch this, I'm your number 1 fan.
I'm probably your number 2 fan, but I think you're great. And this track is called Don't Touch My Hair. And that is going to be the context of our first discussion.
All the black people watching just went, yes.
Yeah, probably.
Because if you're black, you know the feeling.
I genuinely feel like at least 99.9% of the black people I've talked to can immediately understand what I'm talking about when I mention it. Really, that's like a really disturbing way to put that, but I think it kind of is.
Yeah,
a very yeah.
It's wild that in my this is not even as a kid. In my adult life, I've had people ask to touch my hair.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not weird. I think we were talking about this the other day. It's not like a. Hey, your hair's really cool. Is it cool if I touch it or something? It's always this invasive.
They're already weird, reaching for you.
Right in your freaking face, in your face. Let me grab your freaking hair. Yeah. Really creepy.
It's they're touching your head and then asking, and you're like, it's kind of too late, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of you're already full send right now. So, yeah, no, it's super weird. I think my first experience having that happen to me.
First experience is a good one.
Was probably, I think it had to have been in So in elementary school, I actually had a ton of black people all the time with me. So I didn't really, but I also had some white friends and stuff because it was at New Venture.
Yep.
And so
we went to school there a long time ago.
Yeah, for sure. And I ended up transferring to public school called Madison. Yeah, Madison. Madison Middle School, and so I was doing the after school program or something like that because my parents couldn't pick me up or something, and it was maybe the 3rd week of school or something, and some random girl, I'm wearing mind you, I'm wearing a hat, full on, and I had little kind of weird they weren't dreads, but they're these gross looking twisties, takes my hat off and proceeds to grab my hair, and as she's doing that, she's oh, can I touch your hair, it looks so cool. And she's oh, it looks like springs. Oh my god! And all this really really irritating.
Wait, how old were you when this happened? This is Madison, so you had to have been.
It was my 7th grade year.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I don't know how old
you
I
had to
was.
be older than 10.
I just remember 7th grade.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it was pretty dumb.
It's funny because it's not too different from mine. So I grew up. My dad was military, so we lived around a lot. We moved around a lot. Lived overseas for most of my young childhood, and then we moved to San Diego when I was 8 years old. And so my first American schooling I ever did, I was 8, 9 years old at the time. And it's funny. One of my favorite school pictures is this one that I have. I'm in this this class picture, and it's all white girls around me, white blonde girls around me. And I remember one of them. I won't say her name because I think we might still be connected via social media. But I remember at recess, we're sitting next to each other at the lunch table, and she touches my head. She doesn't even ask. She's rubbing my head. And I didn't even have cool hair back then. I just had a little buzz cut or whatever. Yeah, just a little buzz cut. And she's touching my hair. She's like, "Wow, that's so cool." And I remember thinking why are you touching my head? It was just such a surreal moment of I don't understand. There's a bunch of people here. You can be touching their head. Why are you touching mine?
Yeah.
It is just it was, and then she calls her friend over, and she's like, "Come touch Jordan's hair." And so she recruits other people to touch my hair, and I'm just sitting there kind of how do I stop this? It's weird.
I've had that first time wasn't that same scenario, but I've had that circumstance happen to me where it's I'm just kind of minding my own business and stuff, and it's not just one person, it's a group of people.
Yeah.
Like just kind of like
Yes.
crowd around you and start like,
Absolutely.
and you just kind of like the like weird like
And yeah, so I mean, the purpose of these stories isn't to like make fun of these people or to make anyone feel ostracized. Anyways, it's just it really is like it's a funny like rite of passage that most African American people have gone through, and so it's just funny. We're not, if you're like one of those people, you're like, I've touched my black friend's hair.
That's been me.
Yeah, like I wouldn't like. You don't have to go apologize to them. It's just like it's just funny that we like. As a race, we kind of generally have the same story, but I think that's an interesting thing to hop into of like, why do you think like, because so many black people have had a story similar to that, what's like, and maybe you don't want to speak for all black people, but for you, KG,
for sure.
like what feelings do you have when something like that happens?
I think for me, what feelings come up, I think it's good to give like a little bit of context too, because in my school there, I would imagine if you were to like go and do like an actual like census of the population of our school, you would find that there's like what, like 1% of the student body would have probably been African American, and like not in general people of color on campus. Maybe might have been a little bit higher than that number, but probably not very much.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
I think there's like a weird feeling of like when you have like a group of students that kind of recognize something so explicit about your hair or like any kind of feature, it's like you feel very much like the other, and it's like
That's good.
And there's almost like this role assigned to you in a weird way of like, that kid's like super different, and no kid like junior high, elementary school, high school wants to be that kind of that kid.
Yeah, totally.
And I mean, obviously, like each of us like grows up, and we learn how to like like really like grow into like whatever signifiers we might carry or whatever kind of
that's good.
place we might establish in like our like social order or whatever, but it's just super uncomfortable, and it just feels very naked. I think that's the experience.
That's good.
Yeah.
But also like in a really weird way though too, and I don't know if you felt this way, but because there's like it's like a two-sided like coin, a little bit of like, there is the like idea of like you're different, and so you feel ostracized, but also there's like a second part of it that like you want to feel accepted, and so there is part of it that does feel good, because you're like, oh, I want to feel it, like I love that you guys are kind of accepting me, but I feel like that's a terrible way to like get that acceptance.
For sure. Like, I think something that adds on to what you're saying is like, in those scenarios, I feel that there's a part of me at that point in time in my life, I'd already kind of figured out, and I can't say this for all, black people or whatever, but I feel like maybe other people have, like, can understand this. Like, I felt, one, like what you said, like I wanted to be, kind of fit in, and I felt like that was like a weird way to fit in.
Yeah.
It felt really uncomfortable in the moment. But I also felt like it's like I like am not allowed to say something. If I'm the one that calls it out, everyone's gonna see it as like this exaggerated response.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because I think of too with like racist jokes. Like when I was growing up and stuff. Like now I don't like. It's just they're not that like they're irritating to me. Honestly,
for sure.
But when I was growing up, so many people would say them, and then like it would be like a shock value kind of thing for me to say something.
Right. There's a pressure as black people to not, like to speak with a filter, and it comes through in a lot of different ways.
Is it getting recorded too?
Yes. Cool. Keep going. I think that there's. I mean, I think we could circle back to the dehumanizing thing. It's funny, when we cut the camera, we started talking about some stuff, and we came up with this idea of like, there's a pressure, as African Americans kind of navigate situations, especially stuff that's maybe difficult to talk about, that we have to talk with a filter, We can't just say exactly how we feel, real, raw, and honest. Kadri just kind of alluded to. Sometimes when you say that or say things like that, it's people see or perceive you as being threatening or being emotional. The amount of times that I've heard like a black woman being referred to as she's like emotional, Serena Williams. There was this whole thing a few weeks ago. KG's not big in the sports, so I don't know if he even saw this, but a few weeks ago he had Serena Williams had this big match, the big match, and she was very, she was very passionate and loud on the court. She felt like the judge was cheating her, whatever. But like in all the like news, the story, sports news stories and all that stuff was she's so emotional and da 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 da. And I was like, yo, I've seen like white women do that. I've seen black or white dudes do that all the time. And it's like, yo, why are we perceived as emotional? And I think what it communicates to like a younger audience or even just people watching is that you have to speak with the filter. You have to like I even do sometimes I'm like interacting with people. I'm always like, I'm very like, we joke around sometimes, we call it white voice, but like I have to use this like white voice with people because I'm like, yo, I don't want you to perceive me as threatening or like emotional or like, over the top when I talk about certain things. And I think that like permeates even like what we're talking about with this kind of this silly issue about touching the hair. But I think it really permeates that of like, yo, I don't want you to touch my hair, but I also don't want to say no because I don't want to seem like, I'm being, extra or weird or, what I'm saying? And so like, I think it's like, it's this really weird, like mental game that I think, people of color have to play with, that, I can't just be honest with you.
Yeah, a lot of that resonates with me. I think for one thing, there's kind of picked up on this thing as I was growing up that there's a lot of things that my friends that didn't look like me could say or do in terms of like establishing boundaries or kind of, addressing displeasure, discomfort, that if I were to do the same kind of thing, then I would be immediately kind of received as aggressive or overreactive or something like that. And a lot of times too, it was in terms of like getting like ganged up on with like a bunch of like racist jokes or whatever it might be, or just like a super uncomfortable situation that like completely only pertained to me. It didn't like implicate anybody else but me, and I was like the butt of that entire joke. And then maybe say something like, hey, this is like, I'd probably say it with a little bit more emotion, but like, hey, like shut up, like this is like irritating, right? And then there would always be like either like the calm down or it's just a joke or all these things. And totally. Or even this one's like kind of like, this one irritates me like a little, like I still kind of like think about it and it irritates me. My friends would do this thing where like they would say and I'm almost embarrassed to say that they're my like it's my friends, but I'm embarrassed to like even say this, right? But it's like they would say stuff like oh, who cares, he's black. It's like, it doesn't matter what he's saying, he's black. Like we'll just say that like casually. And they would never, I don't remember ever anybody ever saying like, you guys like actually say that, that's not cool, you know what I mean? Right. I feel like as an adult everyone can look at that, but even me in that scenario, just because I didn't have consistent interactions with people that looked like me when I was at school or whatever. Totally. So I just didn't register with me like, this is like not okay or appropriate or like a healthy environment to be in. You know what I mean? Yeah. Wow. So it's like, I just kind of learned like, just don't say anything about what you're feeling. Just like deal with it. Nobody else is going to give a crap. You know what I mean?
But I think you're aware of the fact that that was something that will be attributed to you. And so you have to fight. Sure. You have to fight on two fronts. You have to fight on the front of, I want to express how I feel, but I also have to like prepare for how you're gonna judge me. Like how people are gonna look at you.
For sure. I think of like when people say the whole like, oh, like quit being a victim or whatever. I just think of like, in principle, yes, they are. If you were mistreating somebody, in that principle, like yes, you are like. They are a victim of your hurt and your abuse and stuff like that, right? But they're not like, that's not their identity. That's the thing, is like throwing identity on people as like, oh, you're being a victim. It's like, no, the context of the circumstance says, because you've treated somebody this way, yes, they are a victim of your mistreatment or your misbehavior.
Or someone else's mistreatment.
Exactly.
Sometimes you have to deal with the baggage of someone else.
Yeah, but like that stuff's gonna affect them in different ways.
Totally.
But that doesn't make them, because they brought it up to try to resolve something or to try to like move forward or to address a problem that needs to be addressed or take care of something, does not make them a victim.
For sure.
That's like,
and
that's,
again,
that's not the same thing.
To loop back around, what you're communicating in that dismissal of how they feel is that like they're not entitled to feel that way. Which again, speaks to, I think, the youth and like this like crazy cycle of like, yo, I cannot express how I feel because I know by or I see by experience that people will dismiss me, belittle how I feel and how I'm feeling, and so it creates this crazy loop and this crazy cycle, which is like, as a black person, I speak to someone of non-color with the filter because I'm afraid how you're going to perceive what I say, and I'm just expressing how I feel. You know what I'm saying? Which is just crazy. You brought up the whole like racist jokes thing, which is funny because like I've been in circles where like, just recently, and again, I'm not naming names, but like I was in a circle where we're sports guys and we're talking and someone brings up Colin Kaepernick and they go, yeah, someone told that guy to stand up, right, George? And I'm like, what? Why would you, out of all these people that are all white, why would you single me out?
It feels kind of weird.
You know what I'm saying? So now what am I going to do? Am I going to, in front of all these people, now make a political, what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't talking about Colin Kaepernick. I was chilling. You know what I'm saying?
And so I'm
sitting here just chilling. And all of a sudden now I'm in this incredible spot where, and if I voice how I feel, someone might take it the wrong way. And it's like this crazy like cycle where I think as white people, again, I'm not trying to generalize or whatever, but I think sometimes the white people forget that like black people feel things and they're entitled to feel things, and it doesn't make them,
like evil.
Yeah, it doesn't make them evil or wrong or, you know what I'm saying, or whatever. Like people have feelings just like you have different feelings about different stuff as a white person, and that doesn't define you as a person. It just, you have different feelings than maybe your neighbor does, because doing that is hard. Like when you're in a setting, especially in a setting where you're the minority, when you say something that maybe the group disagrees with, that's very hard, and that's a vulnerable space to be in. So then when you compound that by minimalizing them and dismissing them, I think that just sets a very unhealthy boundary. And I think that's why there's so much mistrust too between the black and the white community, is that like as a black person, like I'm kind of innately trained to not trust you. And it's not, you know what I'm saying, it's as simple as these small things, but yeah, it's like, oh, so if I say this, I'm now boxed into being emotional or being erratic or, well, you can make things always about race. Well, because this is a race issue. Now I'm going to talk about it. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm gonna, again, I didn't make it. Someone else brought up Colin Kaepernick, but now you're gonna ask me, But if I'm, in my brain, I'm thinking, man, if I make this comment right now, people are gonna be like, oh, well, there you go, making it about race again. And I'm like, what? You know what I'm saying? Like
that's a super weird. Yeah, because it's like you didn't even address it. I think that's so interesting because like Sorry,
No, you're good.
This isn't even like fully like. This is kind of almost a tangent off of what you were talking about.
Yeah.
But it's like
this podcast is gonna be full of tangents, I feel.
Oh, for sure. But it's like somebody kind of throws that curveball of like, here's this like random race related thing,
right?
And then you're put in this super awkward situation where you're like, yeah, I don't want to say anything right now.
Do you ever feel like poked and prodded? I think you're like,
for sure.
But now I can't respond
on the like daily.
Like people make comments and I feel like you're baiting me into a response right now.
Oh, for sure.
Like it's so wild to me. Like when I look at just like the news and social media, like honestly, I don't know if I want to say this on camera because I don't want someone to steal this idea. But I'm thinking of doing some kind of like series or like mini video on like calling it the comment section, because like, yo, if you read the comment section on Facebook, it is like, I'm like, yo, your name is next to that comment. Like you can't just, you know what I'm saying? Like it's one thing to send like an anonymous note or something, but like, yo, you commented and like, yo, your name, where you live, like probably where you work is there. It's crazy like what people will say and just kind of the like firestorm that is race right now.
But the stuff you read that people say about black people,
it's hateful.
I dare you to read through that.
Yeah,
I dare you to go through a comment section of any of those things that has anything to relate to that, and like read what people say about like African American people.
Right.
It's like, it's
It's heavy.
It's disgusting, dude.
And I feel like
just read it like to see what they say, because it's like I feel like you can go through that stuff and hear some gnarly stuff and walk away like
there's always crazy
a little bit unscathed, like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Think of you being the person reading that, thinking, wow, that's like somebody talking about me. You know what I mean?
You know, I've heard that before so much. Is like, yo, it's always like, you never realize how. I'm trying to give like an example, but like you never think about it until it like affects you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's true.
You know what I'm saying? So like when like you never really think about it until it affects someone like you or someone that you know and love. So like think about it in that way, and so that when we have like when these things are going on, like we can have conversations and have. I mean, really, I use the word conversations, but I honestly mean like conversations, back and forth dialogue, that is constructive and that is hopefully, you know, constructive, you know, like have a conversation with someone, and like if they say something that like hurts your feelings, don't like get defensive, like listen to them and maybe even ask questions of like, well, like why do you feel that way? Like what have I done that have made you feel that way? Not, you know, not in an attacking way, but listen with an intent to hear them and to understand, not to defend yourself or not to, you know, try and clear your name or I that's not what I meant. It's like not necessarily about what you meant. It's about like, you know, you can have you know, awesome intentions that still really hurt someone, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's just like fact. You know what I'm saying? Like not many people mean to get in a car accident and hurt and kill someone, but that's what happens, you know?
I didn't mean to hit the car, but I did.
But you did, like, and you hurt someone. So like don't go to the judge and be like, well, I didn't mean to. Well, no, duh. Like no one means to.
And obviously that's extreme, like, you know, situation to compare to.
For sure, but I think that I mean
it's still
the
like,
mindset is the principle stands. It's like it's, you know, I don't think most I won't speak for all white people, but like when I think of white people doing stuff like that, I don't think that they're meaning to do that, but it still hurts and it still bothers me. And so when I'm speaking out of what I feel or my experiences, you know, I think the response on both sides, not just black, but also on white sides, is to listen and to listen with the intent to understand. Because I feel like that's what we need right now. Like all this stuff that's going on, like again, what you read in the comment sections, what you see on social media, what you see even just on like news channels, like it's just people yelling at each other. It's not conversation. It's like, no, you're wrong. Well, you're stupid for feeling that way. We all just, and it's like, okay, like I've never, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never met someone who was like, yeah, you know what? That argument, like, because of what someone commented in the video or because of some like that changed my mind. You know what I'm saying? Like that rarely changes people. It's like, it's really through relationship and conversation and like the commitment for empathy and compassion. But like very rarely do you see people like arguing on the news and someone goes, oh, you know what? Yeah, that person like railed against me and called me an idiot and totally belittled me and that changed my mind on this subject. It's like, no, like that just doesn't work. And I think that what we need in this time is just compassion, you know, and conversation.
Like vengefulness is not like, that's never gonna like fix anything. It's just like you were talking about like arguments and stuff like that. Like if you really want to address these these topics, I don't like that's just not a healthy place to be at because it's very misguided, sure. And I think that it's like fair to have like anger and displeasure and like vocalize and display that or make it like apparent and stuff, but there's just definitely a level of like, I don't know that it's always fair because it might be over expected, but I think still like a level of composure and like self-awareness is a pretty big deal. And I really want to like, you know, bring that on that like a lot of it, you know, a lot of that composure piece is like a little unfair, but it's like, it's
necessary.
It's necessary. I mean, it's not, I don't know. I don't know. I don't even really know how I think about it or fully feel about it.
That might be another podcasting that we'll
sure.
unpack later.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, this was supposed to be a little bit more lighthearted. Kind of went off.
Turned into something different.
But
whatever.
For all of you guys who are listening, I know that we have different kinds of listeners and different, you know, different backgrounds and different things of that nature. I just want to, we both want to thank you so much for tuning in. You know, it's pretty late here, so that's why it's pretty tired. But the goal of this podcast is not to just talk about issues in the sense of like what's wrong, but hopefully it's in ways just to inspire you guys, again, wherever you guys are at, whether it's in your classrooms, in your families, you know, at the dinner table, if you're, you know, part of some kind of church religious group, you know, like let's start legitimately, like if you're tired of the way that things are, like we've got to start like taking action and doing something differently. And even if it just starts with a conversation, like that's step 1 of 10. Start with step 1. Like let's start moving towards that. Let's start loving one another, and really being each other's biggest fans and encouraging one another, because it's hard. You know, life's hard, and there's no reason for us to make it harder by, you know, attacking one another and putting down one another. So yeah, again, I think, unless there's anything else that you want to.
No, I think you said it pretty well.
I want to, again, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're on my YouTube, please subscribe. If you are a lover of music, which you should be, you need to go find this guy. He's on Spotify. Kadri Williams. He's got a couple songs out at the moment that this podcast dropped. I'm sure he'll have more down the road. But thank you so much for tuning in. Again, we'll be back next month. Don't know what the name of our next one will be, but we'll drop that soon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure. For George Coltrane
and Kadri Williams,
this has been Black on Black.
Black.